When you hear the name Jesus, what do you think about? For the majority of my life, I would have to say that I didn't have the most positive connotations when I heard that name. And of course, I couldn't really fault Jesus for any of those negative opinions or associations that I had, but it was truthful that I had them, and that when I heard the word Jesus, often it would accompany some form of eye roll, or disengagement, or natural disengagement from the person speaking. And what's interesting when you think about it, is that it's really not Jesus the person that creates that response. There's really nothing about the profile of that man in any sense of the profile as it is presented that is offensive, or is just grating in any way. And so I do find it interesting that when we hear the name Jesus, for so many people, the first response is, in whatever way, shape or form, not really a good one on the inside. It is one of resistance, anxiety, annoyance, any of that sort of stuff. And it's pretty obvious that ain't Jesus, my friend. You got a problem with Christianity. You got a problem with the Bible. Because if you just give it an objective moment, you'll realise that Jesus doesn't represent anything that you have a problem with, and that you never met the dude. So you don't have a problem with him personally either. So really, you don't have a problem with anything to do with Jesus in person or in principle. But for a lot of you, I bet you, if you really spoke in your truth of truths, that word doesn't mean something wholly good for you. It doesn't mean a positive thing for you. It has a negative connotation, or you have a negative reaction, even a low-level one. And you must recognise, regardless of what that means, that is incorrect. That you are incorrectly associating those feelings with a target that is actually untrue. And so a lot of people don't really think about that or consider that. And so what? So what? Well, I guess the so what part is when we are able to let go of those triggers and the associations and the rubbish and all of that stuff, and just wholly and humbly just come back to the person and to the name again, and just go, okay, I'm mature enough to reconsider just the subject matter, knowing that I never met the man and that I probably don't know much. Even if I know the Bible, I probably don't know much, and so I'm really open to the idea that I don't know anything about Jesus enough to have even a feeling about that name or that word. I am open to knowing that I don't know. When we reapproach Jesus in that way, you will find far more relevance, and not just a real interesting person, but far more relevance in knowing that person and that figure in our history, among other things, a lot better. There are many reasons why you really do need to know more about Jesus. And it is just for so many reasons. And it is unfortunate that so many of us, when we just hear the name alone, have that, the sour face. And it's and it's not Jesus' fault. It really is just a problem with the religion and with the Bible. That's what we have an issue with. And so that's been my whole life as well. I have not come from a religious background at all. That's not my bag, and still isn't my bag. And so I guess I have always in my heart had a good feeling for Jesus. But in my social world and in my life, get it away from me, that's just rubbish. And it never really got any better, because people never portrayed it any better. And so I have always been that way, and a bit, no thank you. But it was only a personal experience in my own life for really no reason. That I was able to experience Jesus independently, without any of the frames and bullshit and beliefs and prejudices and all of that sort of rubbish. Like, I had a direct experience in relation to Jesus, in relation to Christ. It had nothing to do with anything. It was an experience purely of what it was. And because I didn't have any of that bullshit or any of that kind of frame, I was able to really see what the revelation and what the learning was for what it was. And I can tell you that, oh my God, I had no idea. I can tell you that I was wrong. I was just so wrong. And I don't mean wrong about Jesus because I didn't know anything about Jesus. I was wrong because I didn't know anything about Jesus, because I had totally written off his relevance. I'd totally just written him off. He's just a healer from the past, just a religious figure. He's all this stuff. Even if I acknowledged he was all of this stuff, I would still tell you all of my life, so what? How does that help me now? And that was my line, like, how on earth does that help me now? How on earth is Jesus relevant for me now? Of course I had no idea, because the only context that I was looking for was religion and the Bible, and that is not for me. That ain't going to bring God to me. And that ain't going to bring Jesus to me. And so Jesus came to me himself, quite independent of that stuff. And I'm not saying that, like, well, I guess I am saying that it's an experience that trumps all of that stuff. It is only an experience that you have had yourself of anything that would make you feel with greater conviction what your experience was true, even when people say that it's not true, or that you're wrong, or that you're full of shit. If you've had a real straight-up experience in your life, even if it was just all on your own, you'll remember it, and if it was a profound one, and if it just happens to have God's name all over it, it's one of those experiences that can truly be benchmarking and transformational in your life that you will never forget, and that it can take seed and take root and take hold in your life and begin blooming, and it is just something different again. I would really recommend, if you have a response to the word Jesus and the name, to just be aware and be honest that your response is to do with religion and to do with the Bible, and that I'm here to share with you that I will never not share your view. I completely share your view and share your feeling, and that if you have that face in truth about the Bible or religion, then I have my face on with you. And I still do as I tell you that you want to know more about Jesus. You want to know more about Christ, independent of that stuff. And don't let that stuff tell you that Jesus is not independent of that stuff. Let me tell you that there are two parts to Jesus that you want to know about, that you don't ever have to go near a church or a Bible to find out about. One of them is the historical Jesus, just the man. The man himself was so interesting. Just the man Jesus and what he did politically, socially, through welfare and community engagement, through strategy, like all sorts of stuff. He really was an interesting dude. Like, find other sources and find out. But more than that, more than the man, the thing about Jesus is that he is the template of Christ. That there has been one true template and holy template of Christ in this space, and it was fulfilled by that man. And God has fulfilled many men and activated many men and masters in this space. There is no doubt of that. But there has only been one being in this space that has wholly activated and fulfilled the law of the kingdom in this world. And that was that man. And I can tell you that the reason that you want to know about Christ is that the answer of that isn't in the Bible either. The answer really is coming back to Jesus and learning more about Jesus. Jesus was not always that as you know it. A huge part about Jesus' life was to do with training, learning, mastership, and discipline. That was a massive aspect of his development and what got him to where he is. It doesn't take much learning to find this out. Jesus became Christ and Christed in so many ways that has not been revealed to us. and that there really are aspects of development and of learning that we can learn and we can develop for ourselves, and that Jesus is the key for that. And if you can get out of all of those structures, you really do want to find out what Jesus was saying, because what Jesus did and what Jesus said truly is the way. The answers for what we're looking for, not just within religion, I mean within spirituality, just within our life, within our hearts and our relationships day to day. Like, we're all that, and we're all pretty competent and stuff, right? But we're kind of a mess today, you know, like the depression and anxiety and anger is just rampant within our hearts. We're shut down, we're raging out, we're not functioning, we're not cool with people, like we're lost, and we're not always in an awesome state, you know. And so how often do you hear people in the throes of their bullshit hit the knees and throw their hands up and go, why, what's why? Like, are you just exclaiming the word? Is it just a pressure release? Are you just venting? Or are you sincerely asking a question? Because if you are not ultimately joyous, and if your life is not ultimately awesome, it stands to reason that you will inevitably at some point get sick of that. And at some point when you are sick enough of it, you will say, why? Why is it like this? Why me? What's up with this bullshit? Why? And the thing about why is that it's not a rhetorical statement, it's actually a question. And there really is an answer. And the answer through all of this stuff, the way through all of this stuff has been given to you in a role model. It's not a guidebook per se, it's a role model, it's a living guidebook. It's a guidebook in the form of a real being. That is in part the relevance of Jesus as well. And you know what? You don't need the Bible for that, straight up. You don't. And trust me, when you get onto Christ and when you get onto Jesus and you really get it, you will want to pick up the Bible and you will never read it the same. You will never look at it in a way that hollow Christians read it, thoroughly versed in the doctrine, but thoroughly hollow in the fire of the Spirit. And that's no good. You can't read that book without fire in your eyes, because you won't see the message, you'll just read the words. Jesus is important, and I would share with you in my own life that Jesus has fast become the most interesting, not just the most relevant person to me, but for none of the reasons that you would imagine, none of the bullshit reasons, not because of the Bible or religion and not because I'm Christian or any of that stuff. He's just an interesting dude, and trust me, for social, emotional, mental well-being reasons, your spiritual prosperity and all of the above, you need you some Jesus.